right, we are live. Hello, composers.
Hello, dear all.
Hello.
So today we're finishing the fiscal year, you might say. We're having our season finale.
Yeah, that's why we are celebrating with some kind of drink.
Yes, coffee,
Same
the
here.
ambrosia of humans. I would say it. It seems like everybody was addicted to it in grad school.
Especially if you are composing.
There was a
Mhm.
gold of coffee. But
Mhm.
regardless, we're gonna be kind of like looking back.
Lots of standing
What?
in that Starbucks line at UBA. Remember,
What?
we're not even very. Lots of standing in that Starbucks line at
Yes,
University of Buffalo. We're not
yes.
even very good coffee that we way overpaid for on our
I
little stipends.
it was in Buffalo. It was, I think, Tim Hortons, right?
Yes. I think Tim Hortons coffee is way better, to be honest, and cheaper.
I don't know. I think they're both bad. I think Tim Hortons kind of tastes a little bit soapy to me, and Starbucks tastes really burnt. So it was whatever I was in the mood for.
Or I should put it this way. We all know Starbucks coffee is overpriced, so you don't really drink it with
Still, even
like
here,
appreciation. Yeah, you think that, oh, it's very expensive, but the coffee sucks, so you don't like it. Yeah, Tim Horton is cheaper, so somehow you can forgive them. Yeah,
they are entering heaven then, probably, and Starbucks isn't because they will not be forgiven. They will be judged. Whatever. We're just being silly. So this kind of sets the mood for what we're gonna, how are we gonna be flowing around today, and kind of like talking about stuff that we did during the last year that we don't remember that well. I think because it's been a year and a lot happens in a year, but a lot is forgotten in a year. I guess you were talking about. Let's go like not from the beginning. Let's go backwards. Shantin, you were just talking right now about your last presentation. What's gonna happen with it? You were in Hong Kong actually.
yeah. We're in Hong Kong for like 5 days or 6 days. I returned to Hong Kong um on a Saturday, and then I left on the following Thursday because I had a performance on April 30th. Actually, I I didn't quite remember either. I just look at the booklet taken from the concert. Yeah, that's a Wednesday, April 30th. Yeah, it's a concert organized by Hong Kong Composers Guild.
What was the piece of it an orchestra piece?
Not exactly. It's a piece for chamber orchestra. The Composers Guild collaborated with City Chamber Orchestra of Hong Kong, and then they had a call for score, and I wrote a piece in response to it, and I was very fortunate that it was selected, so I had a chance to attend a concert and got my piece performed.
And what's gonna happen? When are we gonna listen to it?
I hope everyone could have a chance to listen to it. Although I myself was not very proud of my own composition because I wrote it really quickly. I believe I started working on it like at the end of December. Originally, I wanted to write a piece for Chinese orchestra, but somehow I saw the call for score, and
Chinese?
I had some
Wait,
inspiration.
wait. What do you mean by Chinese orchestra? Does the
Chinese orchestra means an orchestra consists of traditional Chinese instruments like these.
Wait, you're cutting off. You sound far away.
Really? You can't hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah.
Now I can hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Chinese orchestra means an orchestra that consists of like traditional Chinese instruments like dizi, zhang, sheng, erhu, something like that. And I believe the Hong Kong Chinese Orchestra organized that call for score, and I wanted to write a piece, but like after working on it for like half a month or a month, and then I found that Hong Kong Composers Guild also organized a call for score, um, asking for pieces for chamber orchestra, and somehow I had an idea, had a concept about like musical tributes to my deceased mom, and therefore I wrote a piece like for 2 months. Yeah, I took like 2 months, and then like to beat the deadline, and then I took like 2 additional weeks to revise it for the performance. Yeah.
And when are we gonna listen to it? You were talking like, are they gonna play it, or
I th-
well,
I th-
they played it already? They performed it already. I
they
believe.
perform it. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know when they will show it on TV or on the radio. They will show it anyway, I believe, because somebody
When
told
was
me.
the? You're always so hard on. You always have such hard judgments for yourself. When was the last piece you wrote that you would say you were proud of?
Uh,
Happy with?
Very good question.
Out of curiosity.
I one day maybe one
You
day I
haven't
will
wrote
do,
any?
but
Not yet.
You're not. None of
no,
them?
once upon a time I was pretty proud of like several pieces of mine, but after I mean, I'm still getting older and older, right? But like when I'm getting wiser and wiser, hopefully, I get more and more unsatisfied with my own compositions. I see more and more holes in it. I see more and more weaknesses. So, yeah, and I believe as an artist, I have to be honest to myself too, because I I'm the one who knows these projects very well, so I know that there are like plenty of weaknesses. So and very quickly after the performance, I had many ideas for revision. So at least I can say if I if I can have another opportunity, I will revise it and submit it again. Yeah, but okay, but I think the performance uh, was way better than the rehearsals. Yeah. The conductor at the end understood the piece. Um, they had 3 rehearsals and then a dress rehearsal, and then I was only allowed to attend the third one and the dress rehearsal only. And in the third rehearsal, they played pretty slowly compared to my tempo marking. Then I told them the gestures were like murmur. They didn't need to play like very clearly, very like it's not like playing some kind of Chopin etude. And then they play faster and more like courageous, and then it sounds better. Yeah. And before the rehearsals, they had a lot of questions about the multiphonic or some kind of techniques, and everything was resolved. So okay, I was happy on this regard. Yeah, but I think as a composer, I could have done a better job. Yeah.
But one always think like that, possibly. I think that you're generally harsh on yourself.
Yeah. I think also that like, I feel like me and Juan have I mean, not that we can see faults in our own pieces, but then we get more like emotionally attached to our pieces and for what they like represent in a certain part of our lives. And uh, where you're so quickly to be like really harshly judge everything you do.
But I also have some positive things to talk about. For example,
At least you
um,
don't get too attached and revisit it and rework it all the time. I think. I guess. I don't do it like
this
that.
is the first time I use quotation in a rather serious work, and
What did you quote? Oh,
I
Amazing Grace was it?
yeah, Amazing Grace. My piece was titled Sigh Breath, Mitochondrion and Grace, and actually at the end I quoted Amazing Grace because my mom, um during her final years, she converted to Christianity, so I quoted some fragments from the hymn. Yeah. And yeah, I I I thought it would be hard, but somehow it came pretty naturally. But when talking about quotation, I think I could have created a more meaningful relationships between the quotation and other musical materials, in from the other sections of the piece. Yeah, my little critique about my use of quotation, and yeah, and also writing these made me learn a lot about how to create, let's say, counterpoints, between various sections of the orchestra. I think I although I wrote faster and the piece was not as good as the other big ensemble big ensemble piece of mine, but I think I learned a lot from this piece. Yeah.
That's good to hear. I think I would say definitely, especially if you plan on writing more for orchestra, um, right? Do you
I
think
hope so. I hope so. Yeah.
there are more opportunities? You will take them for sure.
I will try. Yeah.
Okay, okay. But I think I have a video that you sent me of a snippet of a video. I would say that I can share probably. Well, I hope. Give me a second. It seems like a meditative piece. Would you say that?
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe at least that section seemed meditative,
And but
slow paced, and stuff like that.
it should be faster though, like way faster. But I need to take this opportunity to say thanks to Chris Hong, who actually took this video from the rehearsal. He he was responsible for some of the some of the like organizing some of the administrative work for this concert, and maybe yeah, because I knew he attended the other rehearsals, because he was the secretary of the Composers Guild, I think, so he was allowed to attend them. And so I asked him, like, I asked him about like what he thought about the rehearsals, or what he thought about my piece, something like that. Then he sends me these videos. So somehow I felt better after saw the video. Yeah. So thank you. Yeah.
So what was, sorry, what was that you, after the video, you what?
I felt better. I felt better. I was very concerned. I yeah. I expected to attend all the rehearsals, but I did I was not allowed to attend the first two rehearsals, so I had a lot of concern. I believe Chris Hong actually sent me this video after the second rehearsal. Yeah.
Hmm. Was there a piece of his too over there?
Yeah, he had a piece at the end of the concert. Yeah. He is also a composer. Yeah. Maybe next time we can invite him to talk about his music.
Yeah, like this year in particular, we only had two sopranos, but from August until December, we had like plenty of guests. I think we can speak about that a bit later on.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if we talk about like what I remember the most from the podcast, I really enjoy the episodes with the singers, as well as the episode with Chris and Dan. I think those episodes were excellent.
About, you mean the orchestra? Well, with the singers, we spoke about the singing, I guess.
Sing-
But yeah, kind of redundant there. But
Dude,
like
it's always fun to
there will
have an old
be,
colleague like Dan Basson come in because it's like a blast from the past. You know, we suddenly feel like we've gotten 10 years younger.
for a while there, right? For 2 hours at least, for 1 hour,
Yeah.
it will seem that we haven't changed that much, at least personality wise.
Yeah.
We may be a bit older, probably a bit wiser. Depends on who you ask, but yeah, I kind of cherish those. Uh, like we did with saying like early last year
Hmm.
too. I think that saying was, I remember correctly, let me see. It was on April last year. So a bit more than a year from last year.
Hmm.
What else have you guys been working on? Go.
Um, I mean, for me, I haven't been working on a whole. I'm
How's your
in the
piece?
phase where I'm looking for projects. I wrote a lot last summer and was working on a piece with Andrew, and that piece is pretty much done. I've been editing it here and there. We're kind of trying to figure out a premiere date. Um, he wants me to be there, and it's just hard to get both of us in the same place, same time, kind of thing. Um, yeah, but besides that, I mean, I've been really artistically like involved. Like I've done a lot of teaching. I've been playing my horn quite a lot more. Um, I've gotten into painting quite a lot, which I did a lot when I was in college, and kind of getting into painting, but in new mediums that are. But yeah, so I've been artistically involved, but not. Yeah, I'm looking kind of for a project. I also had to work. I wrote. There's a flutist. She's an American flutist, but she's lived in Europe for quite some time. Catherine Williams. And she had a project where she asked composers to write a one breath piece. So there's all these
Oh
miniatures.
yeah,
You can
I
only use
cannot remember.
one breath. And I wrote this. I just looked at the score. I wrote it in 2017, which is the year my oldest daughter was born. So I can't remember exactly. I had to have been either really pregnant with her or had a newborn. I kind of feel like I might have wrote it when she was a newborn, but I don't remember. But she's toured and played that a lot. Um, I really recommend if you have an opportunity to write a miniature to do it because
I
they don't
haven't.
take very long to write and they're very easy to they tend to get more performances because they're easy to program. But she commissioned a composer, Larry Goves, who's her partner, to write an orchestra piece using all of she's collected. I mean, it has hundreds and hundreds of these one breath pieces over the years. She keeps adding to them. So I'm lucky. I was kind of in the first batch, so it got performed and it got recorded and all that. Yeah, but the orchestra piece took a bunch of them, and my piece was one of them selected. That they just her part is just playing the piece, and her part is unedited. But then there's an orchestra that's kind of like tying them together. Um, so yes, that piece was premiered, I think, in February. So some things have been happening with my musics, even if I haven't been the most active
Well,
this
that's
year. It kind of ebbs and flows, but
it's been more activity than in other years. That's good. I would say
yeah,
definitely.
yeah. And I think I'm at a project where I'm just, for me, I'm not very good at just writing a piece because I'm really inspired by performers.
Yes,
And so
and what
I need an actual specific project to be inspired to actually write it. Um, yeah, so I'm like at a point where, yeah, I'm looking for that next next project.
you need a performer, then you need to focus on
Oh
a
yeah,
person. Like have you said many times before. It seems you cannot write a generic
yeah,
piece.
nah.
It's like you cannot be Bach, for
Well,
example.
and it takes a long time, as you both know, like to write a piece. It's so time consuming, and you feel like you're like giving a big chunk of your life, and it's very hard to write a piece and just put it out there and find a performer and get it performed. Um, so it's hard for me to get motivated to write a piece hypothetically that may never be performed. I mean, and there's always a possibility that a piece may never be performed. But at least if I'm working with a player who seems interested in the start, then there's a good chance that you're going to get something out of it, a performance, a recording, um, and I just I love the interaction.
And you're also there's also the human aspect, the performer to
Mm-hmm.
composer aspect of it,
Mm-hmm.
and that cannot that it seems to be intrinsic to you, to all of your pieces. Pretty much it's like your pieces are like tailor pieces, tailor made, handmade, so to speak, pieces. So yeah, there's
Oh
also
yeah.
that. But yeah, I'm pretty interested in seeing. Andrew was making his another master's, was it, or was it a PhD? You remember?
I think it's a master's.
Okay, so he must be
So
busy. Too.
yeah,
Probably you
yeah,
can.
he's been busy, and it's yeah.
Probably you guys can.
He works a lot in the gospel sector, and he recently sent me like a master class, and it was like nothing like master classes that we would have ever had at UP. It was just like it was a gospel master class. There was a huge audience, people getting really engaged as they do with gospel, and then they had to write pieces in groups, which he said he found tremendously difficult because he's mostly been you know formally trained like we are,
Mhm.
and yeah, and most of the musicians you have to make tracks because most of those musicians, I was surprised. I thought at least they would learn from charts, if not, but they learn from us like studio recordings. They listen to it and learn the piece that way. They don't even have chord charts or anything.
Hmm. Well, that's another
So
type of.
yeah, different.
Yeah,
But I
it's
have a little.
a lot of memory work, I will guess. Right.
I can. I can share. I think we were. I was told I could only share 3 minutes at a time, but my piece is in the first movement. It's the very first one that she plays.
Bless you. Are you gonna show it? Oh,
I
in
I don't know how to share it though. I gave the link.
a second. Yes.
Yes.
Just a second over here. Please then go.
And that's my whole piece in it. Um,
It was two
yeah, so
minutes.
it's interesting. Yeah, it was interesting that
Another Megan.
project. I mean, I only wrote the flute part, and then I mean that was someone I guess using my piece as a quotation with permission, obviously.
When did
Um,
you write this? In college?
I wrote it I think into 2017.
2017?
Yeah.
I would have never guessed it was yours, but then again,
Well, just the flute part's mine, not the orchestra.
oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, just the flute, just the flute solo part.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
see. So it's kind of
So
like a group piece.
yes. So she's presented my piece on its own without the orchestra many times, but recently she commissioned another composer to use all these collections of pieces that she made to create a concerto of these one breast pieces. So her parts are all she. None of the flute parts are altered. Like her parts are just or abbreviated or anything. All the pieces are just played in entirety. Um, and then there's orchestra that you know is written to go with it. So yeah, it's different. I mean, I was excited about the project. Um, Probably 15 years ago, I probably wouldn't have because I was definitely my piece liaison let me be a lot less of a control freak about my pieces
Hmm.
because I ran into a situation where there was no way I could control everything. Like I needed all these help from all these different experts. Um, and we ended up sharing authorship, and I definitely had a hard time initially getting to that point, but then kind of realizing that the work that I came up with was not something I would have come up with my own or Melanie would have come up on her own. Um, yeah, and then it just seems like authorship sometimes is not very important.
It's sometimes overrated. Well, that's something that we've kind of relearned, probably would be the word, in the 20th century and 21st century with the death of the author, like Roland Barthes put it, you might say. Once it's work is away from one's own hands, like
And then like
people have.
the movement that I my piece is in, like there's a bunch of other composers. Haya Zernowin's piece wrote a piece, and her piece is quoted
Mhm.
in the same. It's probably the only time my music is gonna be programmed that close to hers. We're embedded within the same piece. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, but it seems to be, well, I will have to listen to it, but kind of like, okay, you have a section here, then you have a section here, but kind of like it kind of worked as a transition. I think that there was thought put into how the order might work, like
yeah,
although.
I think so too. I have no idea. I don't know how he attached that project. I don't think if I was the one asked to orchestrate it, I don't know if I don't know. I don't know what I would have done or if I could have um, been interested enough to do it in an artistically interesting way.
mm, well, something something good came out of it. Let's just put it that.
Yeah.
Well,
So how about your year?
My year in review. I finally
Uh-huh.
got a bit of a performance going of the song. We can listen to it. Let me
Oh,
look for
great.
it. Yeah, it was performed last month. Let's see if it gets if both movements get recorded or no. But let's listen to it and we can speak a bit. It's very simple now that I listen to it, but it's okay. Pretty short, but I kind of like it.
That's just the movement, though. You have
Yeah,
of the piece.
it's kind
Yeah.
of a cute piece. It's not very complex, at least for me.
I think I like it. Are you going to add additional movements?
There's another movement, but it didn't get played because uh, of rehearsal time. I must speak with the performers to see if they are going to record it or if we can possibly record it in its entirety during summer. So let's see. Fingers crossed.
That's how a better life starts.
A better life, yeah, like you said with the title of the episode. The
Right.
semester ends and a better life starts. Well, it was good, I think, um, in the sense that it's the first time that I spent, or the second, well, it's the first time that I've seriously composed for The Voice, and I have to rewrite it a couple of times so that the it was it had to do with what Amanda de Ver was speaking about, like register versus tessitura, because some of the parts written like kind of like spend too much time on extremes, like it exploited too much the voice. Like this version is more towards the remains more in the comfortable range of the soprano, and there are some kind of daunting places that I kind of think that some passages that are kind of daunting that I enjoyed it for what it is. I don't think that it's my best piece or anything like that, like far from it, but it's kind of like it's okay. Yeah, like you have to be conscious of what medium you are writing for. And also Amanda mentioned about something about extended techniques and stuff, like using consonants and stuff like that. And it like it will come pretty naturally for us, but for singers that are not familiar with 20th century repertoire, or at least the avant-garde repertoire and 21st century, it's kind of like a challenge. I saw the soprano counting the meter on stage, like trying not to be seen doing that, but yeah, it's kind of like, and there are no extreme changes in meter. It's just for organizational purposes, pretty much. But just it makes you think, like how the performers perceive our music, especially when it's not tailor made like yours, Megan. It's kind of like, um, yeah, it's like they
Well,
get.
most of your pieces haven't. Most of your pieces been tailor made, besides this one.
I wouldn't. This wasn't tailor made. Most of them,
No,
like
but most of your other pieces are.
some of them have, but the thing is like, what I wanted to say is like when a performer sometimes see a score, it's sometimes in their head way harder than it really is. Like we have to notate things. I think we had an episode on notation, right? And how to try and notate things, write things in a way that is more comprehensible. I think that um, when they see meter changes, for example, some of them, the performers get freaked out and stuff like that. But in the end, it's like
Yeah.
it, I'm trying to make it easier so the downbeats fall in place and it's not all in 4/4 with strange rhythms and strange
That
metric.
reminds me like so much. Um, so yeah, I teach horn lessons at a couple high schools, and in the state of Illinois, they have you can audition to be like in the district and the all state like orchestras, and they've had the same audition music in rotation for like 30 years at least, maybe longer. And all of a sudden this year, they decide that they're gonna commission pieces. I don't know. I don't think it was an open. I never heard about it. I don't think it was an open commission or whatever. Um, but um, I don't know if all the other pieces are as bad as the horn ones. but the horn ones are like they're so hard to teach because they're so unmusical and the notation is awful. Like
Mm-hmm.
and they have weird enharmonics that make no sense. It's like they're purposely trying to write it poorly to see how careful of a score reader they are. Um, it's like really not bad. Like it seems like it's intentional,
It seems
but
like
I
someone
don't know.
in college, some sight reading
But then
exam.
it's hard because like I want my students. I want to be like, okay, well, you're at an edition, like you you should be playing musically, but it's really hard to make really bad musical. I mean, and it's really bad. I googled the composer just because I was so curious, and it was like some horn player, like professor horn professor. He was like one of those that you know how there's a slew of people who play music and they probably play quite well, and then they just decide, even though they've never studied composition, all of a sudden they're a composer.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was someone like that, but it's yeah. I was very frustrated by that fact because I'm like, okay, well, I don't even know if there was a call, and this music is. If my high school students turned it in, I would get very upset with the way, not even the music alone, but the notation. Yeah, so it's just like for that to be selected, and I mean, a lot of people will learn it, and they probably the last of the music they played for 30 plus years, so this one probably will be the same, I would assume. But so I don't know, maybe I, it it baffles me, like why are they okay with it being so poorly notated and students are expected to play it, but like professionals would never play that stuff.
Hmm. Yeah, it makes you think about it. And I think that once the soprano sat down and kind of like saw what it was about and kind of lost uh, the horror mindset, like being afraid the mindset or whatever you may call it. Um, I think that it came out pretty musically. It was a pretty musical piece in the end,
Oh,
and
for
that's
sure. I think they did a good job.
kind of like, yeah, I think that they did a good job with what they were given, especially the time and stuff like that. And I could critique that. Is that it's hard for me to critique it because there's another movement. I need the other movement being played in contrast with this one to give a fair critique, because this one is more of a static movement, I will say, and slower, and it doesn't go up and down in register that much, although in some lines of course it does. But overall I will say that the soprano stays around like a D5 or so. Let's put it like there. But yeah, it's been a while since I got a performance. Let's see if I can get a recording, another recording, and just uh, distribute it around. So
Is the B5 the high note, or is it the note that they're most frequently on?
yeah, it's kind of like I will say like the Amanda will say that probably the most comfortable range of for the soprano around the D5, like,
Yeah,
and I just
that makes sense.
it's kind of like
Yeah.
um, of course there was a high B, I believe, or A. I don't remember if I.
I just heard that it was high B5, and I'm like, B5 is kind of hard to stick. the whole time. Yeah, but yeah,
Yeah,
D5 is
but
more
like
is
that
Mongolia.
climax, and yeah, I would really like to hear it in conjunction again with the other poem, because with the other song, because this poem is only 3 verses long. I kind of stretched them out. The other poem had more verses, like 15, 15, 18. I don't remember that well. Anyway, it was fun. I will work with the voice again. Definitely. It's a different experience. It's more melodic in the end. Um, it's kind of like a challenge in a way how to meld it with the instrument and kind of like make it work but still retaining its own identity.
What
I
was
learned,
your experience working with the text?
yeah. My experience
What was
was,
your experience working with the
I think, yeah, I gave emphasis to the words. Let me, soul, alma, palabra, word, like, because of course, for poets it's a very important word. Let me see, I have it around here somewhere. Where was, oh, here. Rock. Yeah, it's kind of like where I kind of analyze the poems in a very rigorous manner. If it shows there, kind of like a mathematical way, kind of dividing the syllables, seeing the form, besides the content and stuff like that. And I wanted to, that was kind of like the first step overall. Well, the first step was seeing what poems I liked, like, or resonated with me the most. Then I went on to analyze them in a formal manner, and then kind of like try to imagine a soundscape for them. And this one is kind of like reflective, very reflective about. Let's see. It's kind of like how the soul might break and how the word enters that, the poet's word enters that, and kind of like it's a very introspective poem. It's kind of like, and I wanted that to be reflected through the music in a way, but also there's a contrast between the imagery used, and I kind of like use that for the registers and stuff like that. So there's some word painting involved, too, like, um, with the melismas especially and stuff like that. Even if it's a 3 verse poem, you can get so much out of it, if you think about it. I think that is cool. I liked it. I like working with words. Have you guys worked with words before?
Not really.
I think that Chunting has.
Yeah,
I'm sure
a
he
little bit.
has, yeah.
What can you say about it? About working with words?
Um, I think is very difficult because first thing I have to consider is the possibility of word painting. But music is very abstract, so I find it very hard to sometimes to translate the verbal idea into like a musical idea, in my opinion. Yeah, and also the length of the text somehow restricts us in terms of the structure of the piece. Do you need, so for example, we may need to repeat some keywords, some important syllables, because the music may be way longer than the poem. Or the opposite, the poem is longer, way longer than what you want to write. So which parts of the poem we need to pick. So yeah, I I'm not a big fan of writing for vocal music, but if I can, I will I will I will want to work on it too. But if possible, I want to write my own text.
Yeah. Hmm. That, that that would be another approach. I haven't thought
Yeah,
about that.
I worked with Tex exactly one time. I was a junior or senior at in undergrad. I guess it was a year or two before I came to Buffalo. And I remember the text came from a dictionary. Do not remember what word it was. But I remember that had I was experimenting with electronics at that time, and I put such heavy electronics, live electronic processing on the voice that like you couldn't even hear the voice because I really didn't want to work with the voice at that time. I think um, I do have another. I have a piece that has voice in it that is not texted, and I enjoyed working. Um, it was in a chamber piece. I enjoyed working with that singer very much. And I liked the piece. That piece was probably 2016 maybe. Um, but yeah, I I don't know. I guess it's hard because once you have text, you have program, you have like very specific imagery, and that's never been something I've particularly been drawn to, and I think I've been kind of afraid of that.
Yeah. I can totally understand because I think I was afraid of that in a way. Um, but once I got into like reading it over and over, I got really into the world of the poem and then how to translate it. Like the first verse is like from the detachment of the rock. So how do I think about it? The word rock is kind of like very important in that verse. And what do you think of when you think of rocks? At least, well, uh, something heavy. So something heavy, a low register in a way. That's kind of like why it kind of like begins with a low register, but also kind of like staccato type of sounds, of repeated sounds. That where some of the boys' repeated notes come from, and stuff like that. It's like, and the word soul, it's kind of like, well, it's kind of like you go from the next verse will translate as, let me see, until the soul almost breaks. But well, in the original Spanish, like soul will be the last word of that verse, and it's kind of like they major it like it's a fragmented like repeated notes, staccato notes, but also when you go from a rock to the soul in an image, it's kind of like going from bottom going up, and it kind of like created the climax in a way. So at least in my head, I what they say, why what I used to listen to, that the one must follow the text, that's what I did right here. It's kind of like at least what my interpretation of it, and pretty much the highest note, the climax, the traditionally constructed climax with the high note, on the word soul is kind of like, it's kind of like going on a curve up there. So I use those type of tactics, and the last word, palabra or word, in the language is palabra. Well, it's spoken. It's literally spoken. So I use a bunch of those cues that I of meaning, uh, in conjunction with musicality, to try and express the text in on musical terms, right? So it was a good experience, and I think I will be open to do it again, but I will have to keep in mind that like again, going back to what Amanda said, that stuck to me, even though I knew it in theory, like tessitura versus range, like how do you reconcile those two? Um, um, yeah, you cannot put.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah. I think that wasn't something I consciously thought about, which I should because that same principle definitely applies to horn playing
yes,
as well, and it makes very sense that it would apply to the voice. But I just,
I would
she
think that
articulated it in such a clear way.
I would think that to most wind instruments, except like something like the clarinet, perhaps, but at the same time, it kind of still applies in a certain way. But like the flute will be a good analogy for that. Um, the thing is that one has to be conscious of the restrictions. One has to be conscious that it wouldn't. One can experiment with its own boundaries, but one cannot be like ultra experimental, possibly as one would with other instrumental pieces, for example, or other types of chamber music. But it was an experience. It was fun as a composer, even if it took a lot of time until hearing it being performed. It's okay. Nowadays, how frequently do we get performances, right? Compared to Buffalo, it's like it was nice. I will have to say that it was nice. Like I've been more concerned with recordings as of the latest years. But it was nice seeing it, hearing it live, being performed live. Like you guys say, it's your preference. Definitely, it would be another experience if it gets recorded. Like to go to the studio, take bits and parts and stuff of it, but just being subject to the performance, not being able to do anything about it, not being in control of anything. Like it's the performers there, and I could kind of like the piece was speaking back to me in a way, and I kind of miss that. I haven't had that feeling in forever now, and it was yeah it's a simple piece, but it's kind of like something that one has created, so it speaks to the one self in a very particular manner.